The Death Mage Who Doesn't Want a Fourth Time. Chapter 44. I will end you completely. There is no future for you. A little while earlier, Vandaloo suddenly woke up. The spirits are making a lot of noise. Has something happened? It doesn't seem like there's a large influx of monster spirits coming from the dungeon where Borkus's party is crushing everything in their path. Now that I think about it, Borkus returned from the dungeon today, so he should be in his usual spot. So then, what was it? He couldn't get an idea of what it was, even when he asked the spirits directly. Well, it would probably be best to stay awake. I don't feel the presence of death, so it doesn't seem like there's a disaster-level high-rank monster closing in on Talosheim, at least. Let's relax and wait for now. It could be that Pavina has just woken up and will be coming here any moment now. Mom is asleep, huh? The small box on the bedside table that contained the enshrined fragment of Darcia's bone was silent. As he started to wonder what to do while waiting, Vandaloo felt a presence. Detect life. Casting a detection spell with quite a wide area of effect, he discovered that numerous life forms had entered the castle. Who would visit at this time of night? The fact that there are reactions to this spell meant that they aren't undead, so just who are they? Excluding people who visit the bathhouse, there should be nobody coming to the royal castle other than me, Pavina, and Borkus. Zadiris is away in a dungeon today, and Basdia visited Bilde and the other mothers to ask them about childcare, and is staying with them. I invited Taria to live in the royal castle as well, but she needs to live in the same building as her workshop, as she's busy with work. She seemed very disappointed, so she'll likely come to live here once she's less busy. Leaving that aside, who are these people? I'll use Detect Life one more time. They're coming here instead of going to the audience chamber? Which meant that they perhaps had business with Vandaloo, so he got up. He waited, wondering something as silly as whether it would seem villain-like to greet them with, "Yo, I've been getting tired of waiting," or "About time." And then he felt a fairly strong presence of death in front of the door. This meant that someone on the other side of the door had murderous intentions towards Vandaloo. Who was it, he wondered, as he took the fragment of Darcia's bone from the small box on the table and placed it into his breast pocket to keep it safe. Judging from the presence I can sense, it's not such an urgent situation, but just in case. But living people who hold murderous intentions towards me. It's far too early to be one of the people reincarnating from Origin. Other people who could have a motive to kill me would be people related to Evbegia or its bandits, or humans from the Merg Shield Nation, but that's unlikely as well. It would be difficult for them to cross the Boundary Mountain Range, and even if they wanted to hire an assassin, nobody would accept the job. The most likely answer was monsters, but there was no species intelligent enough to do something like sneak into the castle living near Talosheim. Could it be spies or something from the Merg Shield Nation? It was possible that there was a squad of highly skilled assassins. As Vandaloo considered this possibility, the door opened slightly, and a woman slipped inside the room. A woman, and she's not concealing her face. A woman who didn't look like an assassin or monster at first glance had entered the room. She was wearing clothes that looked easy to move in, but she didn't have any kind of armor or weapon on her. She was a beautiful woman with red hair and white skin, only a year or two into her 20s. And then, without pulling a knife from a pocket or reciting an incantation, the beautiful woman raised her face. And then she opened her eyes. She seemed surprised. He couldn't blame her for being surprised to encounter the owner of the room that she had just sneaked into, but wasn't she just a little too surprised? But the beautiful woman recovered from her surprise quickly. She stared at Vandeleur intently. What powerful eyes! Even as this thought ran through his mind, Vandeleur didn't take his eyes off of the beautiful woman. She was a trespasser in his room, after all, and strangely enough he could feel the presence of death coming from her. And he thought that this was some kind of contest, where the first person to break eye contact was the loser. With gazes that seemed like they could pierce holes in a surface, they stared at each other. And then the woman's eyes and mouth suddenly relaxed. "You are Vandeleur, aren't you?" "Yes, I'm Vandeleur." She asked his name, so Vandeleur answered honestly. As he answered, he became more and more unsure of who this woman was. But the presence of death, the reaction from danger since death, was growing weaker and weaker. "Hey, what do you think about me?" For some reason, she asked a question like this. I think that you're a beautiful person." I'll give a non-committal response for now. She is actually beautiful, too. "I see. That makes sense. Will you be my friend?" In addition to being happy, she's asking me to be her friend. If I were on a street corner, I'd think that she was trying to pick me up. "If you're fine with me being your friend, it would be my pleasure." It's exceptionally questionable as to whether being friends with a beautiful woman who has trespassed into my room is a good idea, but I'll answer with a yes for now. If I refuse and she gets angry, I'd be scared. "Well then, would you praise the evil god Hihi-Ryu-Shu-Kaka that we worship? Say that he is a wonderful god." For some reason, she's asking me to praise the evil god that she seems to worship. Since everyone in this world knows about the existence of gods, maybe it's some kind of etiquette in human society to show respect for the god that the other person believes in before introducing yourself? Well, I don't really care. Since it isn't Rodcourt or Alda, I don't mind giving some insincere praise to this Hihi-Ryu-Shu-Kaka god. "The evil god Hihi-Ryu-Shu-Kaka is a wonderful god." But who or what is this beautiful woman? She isn't showing any signs of wanting to cause further harm to Mom, nor is she doing anything to try and kill me, and she probably isn't here to invite me to join her religion. Is there a possibility that she's a spy or something from the Orbomb Kingdom side of the continent? When Talosheim was destroyed, the first princess and around 500 citizens happened to escape to the Hartner Duchy of the Orbomb Kingdom. They would naturally wish to restore their homeland one day, and the Orbomb Kingdom that welcomed them would surely wish for Talosheim's restoration as well. They would have set up a political marriage or something with the first princess to make the nation's ruler their relative, and turning Talosheim into one of its vassal nations would surely be profitable for them. There's no longer a route through which the Merg Shield Nation can send their troops. They could maintain the nation as long as they have walls and soldiers to keep the monsters at bay, and adventurers would come swarming in large numbers as there were 4 dungeons nearby. Could this woman have set out to investigate Talosheim's current state? But when she arrived here, the walls, the city, and even the castle had been restored, and there were undead and monsters living here. There was even an unknown king present. So then, has she come here to contact the king, who currently leads the group who has taken over Talosheim? She'll negotiate if possible, and if not, she'll have the guys outside the room dispose of me. I still don't get why she made me praise the evil god, though. They got me. I didn't expect spies or humans to sneak in, so security is full of holes. Without an ability like Vandalu's golem transmutation to create roads among the cliffs, crossing the mountain range with hundreds of people or more would be difficult, and the tunnel leading to the Orbalm Kingdom was still sealed. He never imagined that humans would come in from the outside. The monsters couldn't climb the walls, and they wouldn't even approach since they could sense the presence of the undead titans. That was why there had been no guards on the high, sturdy walls, and it would have been easy for someone to sneak into the city or castle with a little knowledge. Vandalu hadn't even thought about the security situation. He cursed himself for his own carelessness, but felt grateful that he could talk to this person more than the people who were trying to kill him with no arguments, such as the adventurers of the Merg Shield Nation or the religious fanatics who worshipped Alda. For now, I should ask for the woman's name. You have tamed the undead, haven't you? How did you do it? When did you receive the goddess's divine protection? Before he could ask, he was asked a question, and the question asked was something he had never even thought about. How did I tame the undead, she says. I'm not really doing anything special. Is it really something that you'd go out of your way to ask? I haven't thrown special balls to capture weakened undead, nor have I defeated them to have them stand up again and want to become my friends. I made Bone Man and the others myself, and the ghouls and the undead titans of Talosheim are under the effect of death attribute charm. I had to negotiate with Borkus. I don't really feel the sense that I've tamed them. I didn't think it would be that strange, considering that there are tamer jobs in this world. Could it be that the sheer number of undead? From her perspective, it might seem like I've tamed over 1,000 undead, so maybe she wants to hear whatever secret or trick I'm using. Unaware that it was common knowledge that taming the undead was impossible, this was how Vandalu interpreted her question. And the goddess's divine protection. Is she talking about the prophecy that Nuaza received? That's right, but even if you ask me how I did it, well, in any case, I'm able to tame them. As for the divine protection, are you talking about the prophecy? I asked a question in response, and even though she seems surprised, she also seems to understand. Even though gods exist, prophecies are probably rare. I ended up asking her a question in response, but I'm relieved that she isn't bothered by it. Oh, I can feel her murderous intent returning a little. I see. Well then, I wonder if you could tell me about the Sword King Borkus. Can you tell me where he is right now? I was lost in thought and missed my chance to ask her name. She's asking about Borkus this time. I don't know why she's interested in Borkus, but maybe she wants to know how much military strength is present here. Borkus should be in the audience chamber. Should be? Has he turned into an undead? Yes. Neither Borkus's location nor the fact that he had turned into an undead was something that needed to be hidden, so Vandalu answered both questions. When he did, the woman seemed to ponder something. The murderous intent coming from the woman has disappeared again, but I can still feel a response from Danger Sense Death on the other side of the door. I should call Borkus and the others here just in case. I will have to awaken my undead insects, ask them to come to the room below, and... Also, how did you repair the castle in the city? It should have been considerably damaged. Did you make the undead repair them? And then the woman asked about the castle in the city. She might have been surprised after seeing the restored Talosheim that had been previously ruins. No, I made golems repair them. Repairing things by making golems is definitely extraordinary. Even now it costs thousands of mana to make a single golem, sometimes even more than 10,000. Even if it is theoretically possible, it is definitely impossible for ordinary alchemists to do in practice. The golem transmutator job was undiscovered, so only someone with over 100 million mana could possibly use such a method. As Vandaloo had no proper knowledge regarding golems, that was how he interpreted the woman's surprised reaction when he mentioned golems. And then the door behind the woman opened and several people stepped inside, led by an irritated-looking man. Things have changed. For now, I'll turn the floor into a golem. The men who have entered aren't hiding their faces and don't have weapons drawn, though they are armed. They're shooting dangerous glares in this direction. Come to think of it, including the beautiful woman, all of them have crimson pupils.
Oi, how much longer are you planning to take?
The man is saying something dangerous that I should be disposed of since there's no further use for me. He's not even making an attempt to conceal his murderous intent and malice. Despite that, he seems fully concerned about the woman, not me. Is the battle finally beginning? Vandaloo thought, but the woman began arguing with the man, still maintaining eye contact with Vandaloo. This child might be beneficial to us. It would be useful to ask him how he tamed the undead and how he used golems to repair the ruins. I'm happy that you acknowledge my value, but it'd be really helpful if you could try and stop the man. Still, saying things like this while looking into the eyes of the person you're referring to is quite questionable, isn't it?
Eleonora, have you gone insane? The mission we received was to kill the Dampier. That takes top priority, and everything else can come after we accomplished that. Any secret knowledge or rare skills he might have are irrelevant.
This was the response the man gave. Vandaloo had finally learned the beautiful woman's name, but he had also heard something that he was far more concerned about. Killing the Dampier takes priority? Does that mean that these are believers of Alda? They're not spies from the Orbaum Kingdom. Was everything about the evil god a lie? It seems like all of my guesses up until now have been wrong. But why is this man saying these things calmly right in front of me? He's either very confident in his own abilities or simply underestimating me. Either way, it's unpleasant.
Eleonora, you do it. If you don't, I will report to Berkine-sama that you refuse to kill the Dampier.
You bastard! And at the end of it all, Eleonora is being threatened to kill me. It seems that this Berkine they mentioned is really a fearsome person. But this Eleonora person hasn't broken eye contact with me during all this talking. Don't her eyes hurt? Mine sting a little. While these thoughts ran through my mind, Vandaloo decided he was going to deal with these people. For now, I'll capture all of them alive. I could question them after killing them, but if they were dispatched by the Orbaum Kingdom, I could use them in the future if I kept them alive. Eleonora's murderous intent rose a third time. Did she intend to kill Vandaloo as she had been ordered to by Berkine? Can you come here? It seemed that she had steeled her resolve. She asked Vandaloo to move closer. It can't be helped. I'll approach her, and at the same timing as which she tries to kill me. Vandaloo approached her while thinking this. He entered the range of a possible kick, but Eleonora didn't move. Her murderous intent faded rapidly. He approached close enough that he could reach out and touch her, but still she didn't move. He couldn't feel her murderous intent at all anymore. Even consciously using the danger sense death that was always active, there was no response. It seemed that she had either decided not to kill Vandaloo or become unable to. With this, she was no longer an enemy. However, he could feel a remarkable response from the men behind her. Unlike the response he could feel from Eleonora, the response he could feel from them were growing stronger. And it was pointed not only at Vandaloo, but at Eleonora as well. A conflict within their organization? Well, unlike me, she's not in enough danger to be killed suddenly. This isn't good. As Eleonora took Vandaloo's head in both her hands and lifted him up, the men moved.
Do it, you bastards! Dispose of the damn pair and Eleonora as well, just like we did with that piece of trash Valen.
The proud-looking man shouted with bloodshot eyes, and his subordinates drew their swords to kill Vandaloo and Eleonora. Their movement was faster than he had expected based on the response he felt from Danger Sense Death, and he reacted a moment too late. Using telekinesis, Vandaloo flew backwards together with Eleonora. The bed creaked and blood sprayed from her wounded back. However, it seemed that the wound that almost reached her lungs was not enough to kill her. That was to be expected. She and the others were all vampires after all. Having finally realized this, Vandaloo looked at the men, still being held in Eleonora's arms. They were shouting something, but he didn't care about that. What did you say just now? That piece of trash Valen. These men had called Vandaloo's father, who had been killed before he was born, Darcia's husband, a piece of trash.
The effect of the charming demon eyes has been cut off. Kill him before he summons the undead outside.
Serkrant drew his own sword as he spat orders at the subordinate vampires, whose movements were slowed as if they were in awe of the Dhampir. He had no intention of exchanging words with Vandaloo, no matter what he said. If Eleonora heals herself and becomes able to fight, I will not be able to defeat her. If the Dhampir summons his undead, we will be overwhelmed by their numbers. The two of them joining forces would be the worst possible turn of events. They have to be killed now at all costs. The subordinate vampires bared their fangs and rushed in to tear the two apart with their swords and claws. Drop! However, the floor disappeared from beneath their feet. The floor that Vandaloo had preemptively turned into a golem changed shape with the golem transmutation skill, turning into a makeshift pitfall.
A pitfall? Impossible.
The vampires and the bed fell down helplessly. Only the floor below the bedside table remained as it was. But the vampires who had rushed in towards Vandaloo and Eleonora had not noticed that. This is... On top of the bed that defied gravity to float downwards gently, Eleonora was astonished. Too many things happened in a single instant. Her mind wasn't processing all of this new information quickly enough. As she blinked, seemingly unconcerned about the wound on her back, Vandaloo thought she looked quite adorable with this expression now that her formidability was gone. It would have been good to be able to say such cool-sounding words, but there was someone that he was more concerned about than her right now. Please, wait a moment. He wasn't really concerned about Eleonora. She wasn't an enemy. She had appeared before him with murderous intent, but that murderous intent vanished without Vandaloo having done anything about it. Even if she was one of his father's enemies, he would deal with it when that came. Vandaloo turned his eyes toward Serkrent.
Such impudent acts.
The noble-born vampire Serkrent, who possessed the ability to fly, had fallen for a moment, but now he had regained his stance and was floating lightly in the air. There were none among the subordinate vampires foolish enough to land on their backs or heads, as to be expected of vampires.
Hurry up and kill them. Yeah, we'll do that.
As Serkrent turned to look in the direction that this unfamiliar male voice had come from, he heard a slashing sound. And then, in the corner of his vision, he saw his own arm that was still holding his sword, and his leg that had been severed above the knee flying away.
You bastard!
The bald titan, who possessed only half of a face, with finely chiseled features responsible for the sky-rend attack, laughed and said,
"Don't scream so loudly." "Oh, my bad. Are we taking them alive?"
"Change of plans, Borkus. Please, kill everyone except for this person, but I would be happy if you let me kill that one."
"Yeah, roger that. Just when did you manage to charm such a pretty lady?"
No. I'm the one who has been charmed."
"Are you serious? At this rate, things will start to look bad if we don't find Zandia Jochan soon."
Seeing an undead with extraordinary bloodthirst emanating from his entire body, Eleonora whispered in wonder, The Sword King Borkus! It can't be! You tamed him?" The Titan hero, who was said to have cut off the head of a dragon in a single attack, defeated in the war 200 years ago. And even now, he had simultaneously severed the arm and leg of Serkrent, a noble-born vampire. It was impossible that such a powerful undead could be tamed. The difficulty of taming a monster is proportional to the monster's rank and intelligence. Borkus possessed strength exceeding that of lesser dragons and was intelligent enough to hold conversations. Even with the goddess's divine protection, the difficulty of taming such a being should be beyond comprehension. However, there were many vampires who, unlike Eleonora, didn't have the time to notice and be surprised by such facts.
"Serkrent-sama, you bastards, keep the undead busy. I will kill the damn pair in the meantime." "As you will."
The 10 or so remaining subordinate vampires faced Borkus, while Serkrent turned to Vandaloo, who had slipped away from Eleonora's arms and began reciting an incantation. Though subordinate vampires were lesser beings among vampires, their power posed a threat to humans. Even though they didn't possess magical abilities like noble-born vampires, they possessed immense physical strength, sharp reflexes, claws that could tear through iron, and tremendous vitality and regenerative abilities that prevented them from dying, as long as they weren't decapitated or had their hearts destroyed. And they also possessed the human-like trait of receiving bonuses to their skills from jobs. Facing 10 such vampires was utter madness.
"Gah! A dragon from the wall? Gah! Serkrent-sama, please save..."
But such vampires were trampled down without being able to resist in the slightest.
"Gah! No."
The one responsible for this was not Borkus, but the undead dinosaurs that had been created from the dinosaur corpses Vandaloo received on his 3rd birthday. There was a large banquet hall on the unoccupied floor beneath the cabinet minister's office. Vandaloo had already turned its walls into golems. That was why they had changed shape to form a corridor through which the undead dinosaurs had charged in from the dining hall. Apart from those who had been taken by surprise, the subordinate vampires attempted to deal with them, but Vandaloo had also turned the floor they were standing on into a golem. As their legs were caught by the arms that had sprouted from the ground, and their movements were stopped by holes that had suddenly appeared beneath them, the undead dinosaurs pierced them with their teeth and horns. They had the upper halves of their bodies shredded by the teeth of a zombie Tyrannosaurus Rex, their heads smashed like ripe fruit from a direct hit from the tail of a zombie Ankylosaurus, and thrown around in the jaws of a zombie in the shape of a mysterious one-eyed cat with scales. Every time they attempted to counterattack, fists would extend towards them from the walls and floor to hinder them, and then they were overwhelmed by the undead without being able to move properly. Meanwhile, only 3 of the subordinate vampires faced Borkus as they had been ordered to.
"Here, single flash."
With an unenthusiastic voice, Borkus swung his magic sword towards them and released the most basic of martial arts.
"You fool! Iron wall, iron body!"
A subordinate vampire quickly readied the shield that was on his back and used the shield technique and armor technique martial skills. Both of them were skills increasing his physical and magical damage resistance that he had finally became able to use after his skills had reached level 5. There was no way that a sword swung with a technique such as single flash could touch even the vampire's pinky finger through such a defense. However, Borkus's magic sword cut the subordinate vampire's shield, arm, and entire body like a hot knife through butter.
"Come on, you have to survive at least one hit."
The martial skill's power was proportional to the user's skill level. The level 5 shield technique and armor technique skills could not possibly stop the single flash of Borkus, whose skills had reached level 10 and granted him the superior version, Sword King technique.
"Ah! Ah! Thurgrin-sama, it is impossible for us! Please, assist us!"
The last 2 finally understood the difference in our strengths. But are they stupid? Borkus wondered as he swung his magic sword once more.
"Look out! Triple slash!"
Borkus released 3 sideways slashes at high speed. They cut a subordinate vampire's neck below the chest and the base of his legs. Blood scattered everywhere as his legs and head went rolling across the floor.
"Ah! Ah!"
But the other one was saved by the fact that he's only had both legs cut off just above the knees. Well, I'll kill him soon as well, anyway.
Wait, I surrender. I'll tell you anything. I'll tell you about Thurgrin-sama, Kubamon-sama, and even Berkine-sama. So please, spare me.
Sorry, but I've been told we don't need any prisoners. I've been told to kill everyone but that pretty lady, and I do what the boss says. Oh, I've grown up quite a bit, haven't I? And it's an old saying that you should kill goblins no matter how pitiful they look. Saying an old proverb spoken amongst adventurers since old times, Borkus swung his sword 3 times, scattering blood everywhere. The 3 small fries had turned into masses of meat, giving off a delicious smell. Well, you can blame yourself for becoming that kid's enemy. Borkus picked up one of the legs rolling around and began munching on it raw. Delicious. Subordinate vampires taste better than they look.
I suppose I'll try their brains and organs next. I should have at least brought some salt with me.
With fresh meat as a snack, Borkus watched the execution.
Die, you damn Dhampir!
Shouting these words, Serkrent unleashed a lightning attack. The lightning that was writhing through the air like a snake was probably very powerful. There was no doubt that being grazed by it would stop Vandalu's heart, and taking a direct hit would turn him into ash. However, it vanished upon coming into contact with the magic absorption barrier surrounding Vandalu's body.
What? Very well, I shall slaughter you personally with my claws.
Swinging his claws, Serkrent closed in on Vandalu with the speed of a wild beast. His movements were unexpectedly sharp for someone missing an arm and a leg.
I'll have your head, Iron Tear!
Such wonderful speed. To Vandalu it appeared as if Serkrent had vanished in one moment and appeared in front of his eyes in the next. However, the impact-negating barrier and magic absorption barrier had both been set up. After what had happened during the battle against Bugogon, Vandalu had decided to make them extra thick.
What? My mana, my strength!
Serkrent felt as if the air had been replaced by a heavy, viscous substance. The moment he touched Vandalu's barriers, his arm had stopped moving. His shoulder should have been strong enough to destroy a castle's walls, but Serkrent felt an incredible amount of resistance from trying to move it just a single millimeter. It was as if it was submerged in an impossibly viscous liquid. Serkrent thought that this was some kind of special defensive spell, and he understood how he could pierce through it.
Ha ha ha! This simply means that I must attack with an attack powerful enough to overcome your spell.
Laughing loudly, he once again unleashed his high-level, unarmed martial skill, Iron Tear. His arm began moving towards Vandalu again, 1 centimeter at a time. He was less than 30 centimeters away now.
The moment my claws reach him, I will crush the Dhampir's fragile skull and scatter its contents across the floor as he dies a terrible death.
You're right about that, but you can't do it. Serkrent had thought that the Dhampir's expression was empty due to despair, but the Dhampir said this proudly. Quite the bluff. Serkrent was inferior to Eleonora, but his mana and martial skills were worthy of being called those of a noble-born vampire. It will take some time, but even with one arm, breaking a barrier like this would be... 1 arm? Serkrent's arm and leg haven't regenerated? Eleonora noticed that Serkrent's wounds were simply continuing to spill blood. With the regenerative ability of a noble-born vampire, the wounds should have stopped bleeding and begun to regenerate by now, like the one on her own back, unless cut by a sword made of silver or a magic sword of the light attribute. However, there were no signs of this occurring at all. I've used a spell called Healing Negation that nullifies self-healing abilities. It only works while I continue casting it, but it's enough to kill you. It took a moment for Eleonora and Serkrent to understand the flat-toned words that Vandalu spoke. The moment he finally understood what Vandalu meant, Serkrent let out a shout that didn't quite sound like a scream or a roar. He tried to break through Vandalu's barrier at all cost, before he died from losing too much blood. Vampires have incredible regenerative abilities. Noble-born vampires, in particular, can lose limbs and regrow new ones, and after some time passes, the limbs return to normal. That was why Eleonora and Serkrant never bothered learning healing spells. They didn't even carry potions with them. Serkrant attempted to use lightning and fire spells as a last-ditch effort to cauterize his wounds and stop his bleeding, but they faded away and had their mana absorbed by the magic absorption barrier. The more he struggled, the more blood poured out of his open wounds. Serkrant's movements grew remarkably weaker, and his originally white skin became deathly pale.
You bastard. I am the subordinate of the pure-breed vampire Gubamon, who has received the divine protection of the evil god of joyful life, Ryushukaka. If you kill me, hundreds of vampires will. Even the Merg Shield Nation is our puppet. They'll send their forces here. If you don't want that.
And then he started begging for his life. But it was partially true. Vandaloo seemed to think that his words had some merit to them. He looked not at Serkrant, but at Eleonora behind him. "What this guy is saying, is it true?" On the other side of Vandaloo, Eleonora could see Serkrant's face tensing up. "No, this man who killed your father is indeed the subordinate of a pure-breed vampire, who does have connections to the Merg Shield Nation, but they will not move for the sake of this man."
You bastard, wagging your tail for a Dhampir.
"Your breath stinks." Vandaloo plunged both of his arms into the angry Serkrant's chest. With spirit form transformation applied to his arms, he moved them around inside and extracted his spirit while he was still alive. "I've never met my father, so I can't say that I love him. I don't even know if I respect him. So even if you ridicule my father, even if you're the one that killed him, I can't hate you on his behalf. And I've learned the hard way on Earth and in Origin that blood relatives aren't always your allies." And then Vandaloo began to tear the spirit that he had pulled out. "But my mother loved my father, and the fact that you have connections to the Merg Shield Nation means that you're not entirely unrelated to her death. I'm sure you were involved with the extermination force that was sent into the Devil's Nest Forest, too. That's why I hate you bitterly. I'll never forgive you. I don't want to be liked by you. You make me sick. I'm not going to let you have another life." His spirit form arms found a shining sphere, the size of a marble that he could pinch between his fingers, and then he seized it.
Stop! Anything but that!
This sphere was a soul, the core of a spirit covered in spirit form. If compared to a cell, this was the part that would contain the genetic information. Serkrant understood instinctively and pleaded with Vandaloo, but Vandaloo was not listening. He crushed Serkrant's soul with all of his strength. With a cracking sound, it crumbled and fell to the floor. The base fragments that had made up Serkrant danced in the air like particles of light. Serkrant, who had been screaming for his life, stopped moving at that moment. His heart was still beating, and he was still breathing. And if there were machines available to perform electroencephalography, they would probably be able to detect brainwaves. However, Serkrent will never move again. What a nice sound. I've always wanted to do this. He had broken a soul. In manga and light novels, Vandaloo had occasionally seen spells or items that could break or destroy souls, but he had always wondered ever since his time in Origin whether it was really possible to do it. Because in this world, and even on Earth or in Origin, there was no hell to punish the dead. It was impossible to imagine that Rodcart, the god of the Circle of Transmigration, would make the effort to create one. If the guys who have taken everything from me were to simply die, pass on, and be reincarnated, it wouldn't be worth it. But those who had their souls broken would have only oblivion awaiting them. Their souls would never find their way to Rodcart. There would be no new start for them. But it takes too long. It's not something I can do during a battle. I have to do it after immobilizing them or killing them first, I suppose. Vandaloo put Serkrent on the floor. He turned to see Borkus staring at him with his jaw dropped, half-eaten subordinate vampire legs still in his hand, and the petrified, wide-eyed Eleonora. What are they so surprised about? Just now. What did you do to him? You broke something of Serkrent's. What was it?
I'm an undead, and even I could see it. If my eyes aren't playing tricks on me, that was his soul. The kid went and broke that vampire's soul. Ha ha ha! He really did it.
His soul! Eleonora's expression was one of dumbfounded awe, while Borkus gave a nervous laugh. Vandaloo consciously used the muscles in his cheeks that normally never moved to smile at them. I'll be the one questioning you now. And you don't really have to praise Vita or anything. For some reason, the two of them remained petrified. You have acquired the soul break skill.